Welcome back to the studio. I'm Jarrell from Sungrand. This is the Sungrand channel. Today we're working on a 50s diner for a video game, and that video game is Silver Falls. The diner we're working on is called the Frying Saucer, which has been referenced and appeared in a number of Silver Falls games, and also the novel, which you can read for free at silverfallsgame.com. Now, if you've missed the other 7 episodes, it's too late. They're gone forever, and you couldn't possibly find them on our YouTube channel. So, between last episode and this one, I've worked on a few minor things that you'll be able to tell right off the bat if you've been following us. One thing that I've done is added a few post-camera effects to make things a little bit more interesting now. You can see I've increased the depth of field, which means things in the background are now more blurred. Things in the foreground are in focus. As you can see, Slim is in focus. One challenge we face in video games is transparent objects and how they can be applied with the depth of field, for example, and fog effects. So as you can see in the windows in the background, the depth of field hasn't applied to them, which means they're still sharp and in focus, and the fog or the sort of the atmospheric lighting doesn't necessarily apply to them. So this is a challenge that we always face, and there's always a lot that you have to do to sort of overcome these issues. This is a blank project which I'm using to build this environment, so I'm not really going to worry about it this much. I'll just slowly move through the scene, and you can see how things come into focus just as I dolly through the scene here. So you can see Dodger's out of focus, and then as I move forward, you can see he comes into focus, and it sort of makes more sense. You can see the glass of the windows, and particularly the glass on the fireplace, doesn't work well with the ambient lighting and the volumetric lighting. So let's go ahead and just pretend that it's not a problem. Okay. Another thing that you might notice as I turn towards the outside is you can see the sun rays now coming through the window in various ways. I'd like to have this as not too overpowering, but it does add a lot to the realism and the interest in terms of dynamic for the highs and the lows and the contrast of the scene. I think it's quite interesting. I'll briefly just turn that off so you can see what it looks like without those sun shafts. Whoop, it's gone. Not that interesting, is it? And it's back. It certainly looks quite pleasing to the eye, doesn't it? Let's go ahead and spin that around. You can see as we look away from the camera, it doesn't really seem to have an effect anymore. Let's have a quick look at our scene here. Okay, our diner is really shaping up. I think it's looking quite nice. Let's go ahead and turn our attention to the entry area as we fill in more details. Let's have a look at this. Now, people don't want to be standing around if they're waiting for a table to open up. So I've already pasted a bench in here. Let's go ahead and have a look at what that looks like. Okay, and I better start my timer to make sure I can keep track of where I'm going. Nice. We've got our bench here. Now, it seems to be a little bit too big and it doesn't fit in the spot quite right. Disable the gizmos to make the scene cleaner. We'll go ahead and just scale that in a little bit. There we go. That should be enough for 2 people to sit. It sticks out a little bit, but that's okay. The world is not beautiful because it is perfect. Now, go ahead and borrow our sitting Dodger. Let's go ahead and move him around. There we go. Yeah, he seems to be out of the way. The door can still open. Alrighty. You know what? Let's get a little uncanny in here. Flip that around. Ah, fantastic. This looks like a nightmare just for me. Wonderful. Just wonderful. Fantastic. And the best way you can have a seating area is if you are forced to stare at another family waiting to be seated right in the eyes as they wait for their seat. And you can sort of have a mental standoff to see who gets to get the next table. You just stare at each other. So much fun. It's wonderful. I think the seat might be a little bit too high. Let's have a look. Yeah. I'm going to lower that just a little bit. Okay. Let's apply that to our prefab. You can see the changes reflected in the opposite seat as well. Now, I would like to add a hat rack in here. Unfortunately, I don't have one on hand, so I'll have to sift through my asset library and see what I have on file. Okay, let us find our player camera again, and let's see how that looks with our lighting. Doesn't look too bad. Nice sunlight coming through. Wonderful. Let's bring that back. Now, I would like a rug area, or a rug in the front area, so people can continue wiping their feet. So let's see what I've got here. I'm going to scroll through my prefab list, and I know that I've got one that I had in mind. Let's go ahead and find that. Just a moment. Close the windows I no longer need. Put them away just for now. Keep them in my pocket. Be sure to use them when I need them. Okay. Now, is this carpet too long? Is this carpet too small? Let's go ahead and put this big carpet down and see how it looks. Gee, that's not too bad, is it? Let's go ahead and put that there. I think that adds a nice bit of dynamic to our scene. Now, you can see here that it's not quite as detailed, doesn't have the amount of depth that I would like. But what I have done on this rug here is I had used a secondary map for detail. So I'm going to do the same thing here, and we can see how much more interesting this gets. Here we go. Put that in there. You can see immediately there's a noticeable change. I'm going to increase the scale of that. Not too bad. I would like it to be a little bit more visible. Go ahead and make that 2. Let's go ahead and make that 3. You can see there's quite a bit more depth now to it, isn't there? Much more interesting to look at. Wonderful. Now it looks like there's dimensionality to it. That's quite nice. I might desaturate this color later on because I don't want it drawing too much attention away from the other elements in the scene. These seats I'm going to make more brown as well. And also this is supposed to be kind of an old scene, old rugs and whatnot, so it's supposed to appear a bit more faded. You can see the imperfections of how it's lined up. What I want to do now is I'll go ahead and just turn that a little bit so it's more crooked. There we go. That's fun and happy. Wonderful. Let's lighten up the color a little bit and see how it looks in the scene. Might be a little too bright. I'll go ahead and desaturate that in the imaging program later on. That's quite nice. I quite like that. Let's go and look at our options for tables. We can start spacing out where we will have the other tables in our restaurant. Nice. Let's see, what table is this? I have a table that's set with chairs. Let's go ahead and find that really quickly. Wonder where my table with chairs have gone. It'll be just a moment while I find it. All right, let's go to our diner set. Okay, now we have our table. Can we fit one here? Gee whiz, might be a bit of a tight fit here, wouldn't it? Yes, this is too much of a tight fit. Maybe we can put a circular table here, or it might be a little too crowded. Let's go ahead and let them breathe for a moment. We'll put some chairs here. Make sure people can still walk through. Can they walk through there? Not too bad. That looks okay. Let's go ahead and duplicate this. Yeah, that looks all right. People can still get through. That means that they could seat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parties. I wonder if I can fit one over here. Let's go ahead and put this circular table here. This looks like it might be a little bit crowded, but let's leave it there anyway. We'll see how we feel about it in the morning. We'll duplicate this again, bring it over here. It looks like we can comfortably fit another table just here. Wonderful. We want to give people room so they can access the jukebox. And, hey, it looks like we can fit another table right here. That's just fine. People can walk through. There's enough space. That looks okay. Look at that. Wow. Premium. Plenty of seats for everyone. Let's go ahead, spin our player camera around, which does have our post-processing. See how it looks. You might have noticed a bit of the volumetric lighting here. One thing I did add to this scene, which I will turn off momentarily so we can see the difference. Let's see. This is an Aura volumetric box. If I disable this, you can see the difference quite immediately. There we go. The scene isn't anywhere near as interesting, isn't it? With our volumetric lighting, we can simulate dust particles and other moisture and density to the air, and it makes it more interesting as light bounces off those particles. There we go. It makes for a much more realistic and interesting scene. All right, we've got some tables and chairs. Let's have a look around. Not too bad. Wonderful. Okay. Let's frame this up in an interesting way. Yeah, we can see our table and chairs just there. That's nice. What a lovely scene. Let's go ahead and make a measurement very quickly. Let's figure out if these chairs look like they'll fit a human being. Is this chair too high or too low? Gee, Slim sure is a tall fella, isn't he? Let's go ahead and compare this table over to the next one. How does this look? It's a little bit on the low side, isn't it? Let's see if we can fix this in the prefab. Looks like it'll take a fair bit of work. Fortunately, all of this stuff is parented to the table, so I would have to go like this. This is not an ideal solution. This is just temporary for now, so we can make sure our spacing is right. Our chairs now seem to be a little bit on the tall side. So let's go ahead, select each one manually. Oh dear. And shrink them right down. There we go. Make sure you have enough room to sit comfortably. That seems like it should be okay. Actually, yeah. Seem to be on level with those red seats. Not slightly lower, but that should be okay, as long as it's comfortable sitting. Select our parent object again. We will apply that, and we'll be able to see the changes reflected in the other objects as well. Let's copy that. Paste that. They're lined up. And now, we'll go ahead and make some random minor adjustments to add some imperfections to our scene so they don't perfectly line up. Fantastic. Let's go ahead and move this back just a little bit more. Wonderful. And we'll do the same for these two tables here. Introduce some minor imperfections. And maybe we'll move this one back here like this. Wonderful. That looks a-okay. Now, I think it'll be interesting to take this scene and to change it from a day setting into a night, and that way we can see the full effect of the lighting from all of our light sources. So what I will do is I will take our sky color, going to set it all the way down like this. Now, I will find our sun object. Okay, we've selected the sun object. Go to our inspector. What I'll do is duplicate it. How about that? This time, change the name to moon. Nice. Select our sun object. Go ahead and disable the light source. So as you can see, light's no more coming through, but we still have the sun shafts. What we will have to do is manually disable those. So let's unselect that. Go back to our game camera. And with our game camera, we can go ahead and disable the sun shafts. So those will no longer come through. Okay? Now, our light source. Actually, we'll disable the whole thing so we or a light shouldn't take effect anymore. And in a second, you should be able to see that update come on through with the details. We'll go to our moon now, which we've set up. This time, go ahead and change that to a very cold light. How about that? There we go. The details of that should come through momentarily. You have the light, and that's it. Looks like it's updating. So you can see that the scene is now quite a bit darker. And we'll look around. Jeepers, sure is getting much more atmospheric and a little bit spooky, isn't it? Let's go ahead and raise this up to eye level now. How does that look? I quite like the lighting in this bar. It's nice and warm. And there's a fair bit of interest in terms of the shadows that are being cast by the various objects and the various light sources. Nice. Nice. We still have a bit of a sort of a twilight glow coming through. Let's see what we can do about that with the equator color. Drop the equator color right down. Drop that, and the ground color. Now that we've got a spooky night scene, let's go ahead and save a variant of the scene so that we can go back to our daytime scene whenever we'd like. All right, we'll go flying saucer. Night. Nice. Now, looks like it's getting a little bit too dark for the light sources that we have in the bar itself. Let's go ahead and make a few adjustments. You can see the bar is quite moody, but those lights above the bar just are not strong enough. Okay, we do have quite a few pixel light sources now. I'm going to go into project settings and quality. Pixel light source is set to 12, but we're using deferred lighting. Should allow us to use as many pixel light sources that we want within reason, of course. And we will turn up the intensity of these lights. Currently at 4. Let's go ahead and raise that to 8. Okay. We'll select the parent object. Go ahead and apply that. Now you can see the bar's lights are now bright enough. Go to these lights here. The F key has shot us back outside. All right, now let's go ahead and turn our player camera just so we can see the differences. The restaurant is a bit too dark, isn't it? It sure seems that way. Right. We'll select our object. Back outside again to the void. And select our point light. Maybe need to bring our intensity up just a little bit. About 1.2, 1.5, 1.6, maybe 1.7. How about 1.8? Let's try that. Select our parent object. Apply all. Okay, it's looking all right over there. It's not too bad. So, it seems like we have density in our volumetric lighting, which is causing the bar in the back to be, or the restaurant in the back to be quite darker. Go ahead and select our player camera and move around and see how it looks. Not too bad. Sure did get some interesting reflections, don't we? Looks like Dodger's spanking himself. Bad Dodger. Bad. Let's go ahead and move him over somewhere else. Bring that on over. And it looks like we do have an interesting bar. Now the way we're going to make this even more interesting is by adding small details that help make this world feel lived in. So that'll mean more variations on the placement of objects, more small objects. We'll have some mess. We need more rubbish bins, don't we? Perhaps we can put one back here. Let's try this. Grab this fella. Bring him on over here. about that? There you go. He seems to be quite happy sitting right there. Does seem to be a bit low, doesn't it? About this. Bring that up just a little. Bring it forward just a little. It's not a prefab. We can't apply it. Let's see. Not too bad. Now, if I look at this scene, I feel like this area is still just a little bit empty and I'd like to add more details. I'll be adding more decorations on the walls, and I'll be adding some things up along the top here as well. So, before we check out today, let's move our player camera around and enjoy our new lighting. And here we are, the frying saucer. Doesn't look too bad, does it? Yes, I'm quite happy with this. This is looking all right. We'll have to put in a bit more work so we can get some bespoke architecture here so people can climb to the roof. And on another day, I'll be working on that lookout up top, the observation deck. Before we leave, why don't we put some lights in the bathroom? It's looking a bit gloomy in there, isn't it? Again, we get shot back to space. Let's duplicate this item. Bring it on out through here. Oh dear, that lighting sure looks a bit spooky, doesn't it? Quite like the shadows that are being cast through there. Oh, how spooky is that? I quite like that. Okay, let's see if we can place this one in an equally as spooky placement. That's not too bad, is it? Fantastic. Let's move the camera back so we can enjoy our new lighting. Wonderful. Have a look at that. Now that's some fun lighting. Wonderful. Just lovely. And enjoy the shadows that are being cast. Fantastic. Lastly, before we go, I would like to add a bit of detail to the floor. It looks too clean, a bit too perfect for my taste. So before we go, before we wrap things up, I'm going to find my detail. And I've got something here that'll help add just a little bit of detail. Let's try this. Perhaps this? No, that's too intense. This is too dirty. I might have to do some modification on that if I did want to use that. I would have to make it just a bit lighter. Let's try this one for now. That looks okay. But I would like to use the other one, so I'll have to use my imaging program to make some modifications. That looks okay by me. I'm going to make an adjustment to the metallic just to see how it looks if I turn things up and down. Interesting. Interesting. I might make some modifications here. Let's go ahead and turn these up just a little bit to add more interest to the lighting and dynamic of our scene. Looks a bit better at night with these tiles reflecting light differently, doesn't it? Bit of an optical illusion makes them feel a little bit crooked. Yes, this is a very nice scene. It looks very happy the way it is. I'll be adding more small minor details to make this all feel lived in, but our diner, for the most part, with the structure, is looking quite filled out, isn't it? Thanks very much for joining me on this journey. I hope you had a lot of fun watching the bar get built. We'll still be working on it more. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and if you have any recommendations, please let me know. I thank you for joining me on the SunGran channel, and I hope you'll join me again soon on the next episode. We'll be covering a lot more topics and doing a whole lot more. Please remember to subscribe to my like button, and I'll be seeing you again soon. Thank you.